Welcome to the debate between National Nankai International Experimental High School and Dazhong Senior High School. The proposition for today's debate is that the Taiwan government should make public sex offenders' personal information. For the debaters, rules for timing your speech are as follows. When there are 30 seconds left, you'll hear one short read. When time is up, you'll hear two short reads. When it's 30 seconds into the extension, you'll hear a long read. And upon hearing that, you have to stop your speech. And rules for timing your cross-examination are, when there are 30 seconds left, you'll hear a short read. And when time is up, you'll hear two short reads. And upon hearing that, you have to stop your cross-examination. Any evidence cited during the debate should have a corresponding evidence card, which may be reviewed upon request by the cross-examiner and their teammates. The card needs to be returned at the end of constructed speech following the cross-examination. For the audience, please turn off your cell phone or turn into the vibrate mode. When the debate is still in progress, please do not chat or use flash when taking pictures. Thank you.
First, affirmative constructive statement. 4 minutes.
Honorable judges, fellow debaters, and esteemed guests. How many times have you watched the TV, read the news, surfed the internet, and came across some banal news that seems extremely appalling simply because the media has exaggerated it? The reason why we're debating this topic today is not rooted in the insignificancies of the number of sex crimes, however the fear that the media feeds into our vulnerable minds that is causing us to feel unsafe. And for the following, I'd like to start with the definitions. Sex offender, a person who is convicted of forcibly coercing another into sexual intercourse, and personal information includes ID, name, age, gender, size, weight, and etc. And thus, under the SAS code, we've observed 4 harms. 1, the media increases irrational fear, making society seemingly unsafe and creating unnecessary paranoia. According to M. Karakash, author of A Woman's Fear of Violence in the Community, that the media tend to portray typical, frequently occurring crime as violent in nature. These techniques can create misconceptions of crime and cause unwarranted fear within members of society. 2, the present exaggeration of the number of sexual crimes in Taiwan leads to hysteria and a net economic loss. According to QALY, a methodology for estimating the intangible and tangible decreasing one's quality of life due to sex crimes, the irrational fear of sex crime procures a net cost of $11,280 million. Harm 3, the present exaggeration of sexual assault members give the impression that the problem is worse than it actually is, damaging Taiwan's international image. The publication of several high-profile sex assault stories about crimes against women and rapes have generated significant fears and tarnished India's reputation as a tourist destination. According to Ms. McAdams, a business consultant, damage by the media has already been done. It may take years and years to undo it. Harm 4, the present exaggeration causes stereotypes in society, creating misogynistic views that degrade women. According to M. Karakash, again, the media has created particular stereotypes. These stereotypes have affected numerous people within today's society. This includes the stereotypes that women are weak, vulnerable victims, which undermines women's capacity to lead, hindering women's career achievement and advancement in society. And in order to solve the harms, we provide the following plan called pay-per-view. Plan 1, the Department of Public Safety technicians will create a tab on the department webpage featuring sex offenders' personal information. Plan 2, the Department of Public Safety will insert a 600 NT pay-per-view monthly subscription, so concerned individuals must pay a fee in order to view sex offenders' personal information. Plan 3, the UN will pass a new press law requiring that with each rape or sexual assault story it publishes, the press must publish reliable statistical information. Issue a disclaimer on a prominent place on the same page. So clause A, non-compliance will result in fines up to 600,000 NTD. Our funding will cost a total of 3,600 NTD. If the negative so wishes to challenge it, they may challenge it during our cross-examination. Our working model is in the United Kingdom. Again, if the negative so wishes to challenge it, they may do it during our cross-examination. We have a solvency in school media guidance. According to BT spokesman John Carter, that by 2008, 95% of all media readers and watchers have been so clean feed, and it has decreased the viewing of media exaggerated sex crimes by the same amount. And for our plan will bring an additional 3 advantages. Number 1, solve bigger problems. Number 2, more responsible press. Number 3, decrease recidivism. And overall, I brought up 4 harms under the status quo. And we have provided a viable plan that will solve the harms that we have provided. And I have also provided additional 3 benefits that our plan will bring. So judges, the decision is in your hand. If you vote for the affirmative side, you are not only helping the ones who have been sexually offended, but also the 23 million people in Taiwan who are suffering from hysteria, irrational fear, and paranoia because of the media. Thank you.
Second, practice cross-examining first affirmative. 2 minutes.
Good afternoon.
First of all, I want to ask, you mentioned the harm too in your speech. So can you tell us again?
Explain?
No, just briefly.
Oh, okay. Harm 2. The process exaggeration of the number of sexual crimes in Taiwan leads to hysteria and a net economic loss. Do you want me to read the evidence?
No, thanks. But you said, so you have the evidence that proves the harm is there. So
Yes.
can I have the evidence card?
Sure. It's here.
Okay. And so, the evidence you have mentioned a lot of evidence in your speech. So, do you know the way that the research, how the research, like, I mean, what's the research target in that?
For harm, which one?
For harm 2.
Harm 2. Harm 2. So the research is it's estimating the intangible and tangible, which means that intangible is like the abstract, and the tangible is like the physical. Intangible, for example, happiness or
Thanks.
life.
You mentioned that about something about 95% of people.
Yes.
Can you tell me that the sample size of which 95% of people say?
The 95% of all media, so basically everyone who watches media or readers.
Which is?
Thank you.
Cross-negative constructive speech. 4 minutes.
Good afternoon. We negatives strongly contend that the Taiwanese government should not make public sex offenders' personal information. And we would like to respond to some of the points mentioned by our opponents. First of all, they mentioned that their purpose is to make the public feel safer because there is some sort of misconception. But then later, they also mentioned something about recidivism. But then in the current law, in the current status quo, the recidivism rate is in fact low. And that, on top of that, there is no significant effect of registration and notification on recidivism. An uninterrupted time series analysis investigated the impact of registration and notification loss on the sexual assault rate in 10 states in the United States and found no systematic reduction in the sex crime rate after implementing of the registration and notification policies. 3 states experienced a significant decrease in the sex crime, but 5 other states demonstrated an increase of sexual assault rates with the notification. Therefore, it's weird that they try to publicize the information but also decrease the recidivism because it doesn't work like that. And by publicizing the information, there will also be collateral damages to the sex offender. Negative consequences such as job loss, stress, shame, and the loss of social support caused by publicizing the personal information, preventing them from turning over and starting again. A study done by Joe Levinson and Richard Tuxbury, who were both experts on the sexual violence and registration, showed that 53% of the 584 participants stated the registered sex offender lost a job because of a boss or coworker found out that he or she is a sex offender. A majority reported that psychological consequences such as depression, hopelessness, and the fear for their own safety. Thus, even though notification might work in their plan, but then there will be still negative consequences put on the sex offender. Therefore, we negatives strongly contend that the Taiwanese government should not make public sex offenders' personal information. I'm now ready for cross-examination.
Let me start by clarifying things a little bit. You talked about how something may lead to depression, hopelessness, and fear. What's the main thing you're talking about?
Collateral damage by publicizing the...
So, is the status quo doing something to combat this?
According to the status quo, the recidivism rate is low.
Do you have evidence?
Yeah. Do you want it?
Yes. And do you have the statistic?
Of what?
Recidivism rate.
Yeah.
Can you state it?
It's 3%.
3%. And what year is that?
2011.
2011, so judges, that is 3 years ago. We're living in 2014 currently today. And do you have any evidence that the status quo is currently doing anything to combat this?
Did you just ask me that question?
Okay, don't worry about that. Do you have any evidence that publicizing information and recidivism has no relationship? Do you have any evidence, direct evidence?
Yes, I do.
Can you state it?
Again?
Not again, but I didn't ask you that. Do you have evidence saying that publicizing information and recidivism rate has no correlation at all?
Yeah, I said it in my previous speech. Which is
Can you
that
say that again?
an interrupted time series analysis investigated the impact of registration and notification law on sexual
Okay,
assault.
thank you. And do you have any evidence that exaggeration that the media makes does not create irrational fear?
Can you repeat again?
Do you have any evidence that the exaggeration media makes does not create irrational fear?
Can you finish yourself?
Don't worry about that question. Then do you have any evidence that hysteria doesn't cause a lot of that? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Second affirmative constructive speech, 4 minutes.
Alrighty. Honourable judges, fellow debaters, and esteemed guests, let me first, before I even start off, actually ask for a forfeit here today. Now, the negative team, one of the first things they actually have to do is to first defend the status quo. In other words, tell us what exactly is the status quo doing. So we have a problem which we call sexual offense in Taiwan. So what exactly is the status quo doing? They never went around to do that, and that is actually one of the first things that the negative has to do, and they failed to do that. So that is a wee bit unfair on the negative team's side. Now, I would like to first clarify and explain. So how exactly will our plan work? Now, our plan, actually, first, we are targeting the irrational fear that the media is generating. So in other words, the media publicizes one story about how there is this one man who, he raped one woman, and then suddenly all women in Taiwan fear that they will be raped on the streets if they walk alone at night. That, in Taiwan, as they've talked about, and the negative is kind of hinted at, is not really a big problem in Taiwan, and we grant them that. So what we on the affirmative team today, what we're trying to do is we're trying to quell that fear. We want to decrease that fear, and we're adding this to the whole entire sexual offense section in the whole entire Taiwan. So we're adding to the broad ranges of things that the government can do. So how exactly will our plan work? Our plan will do two things. Now, as I just said before, there really isn't a big problem in terms of rape or sexual assaults in Taiwan. We're looking at about 300 cases a year, which isn't really a, and we're looking, and that translated is 0.013% of the sexual assault rate in Taiwan compared to America's 25%. So really, we don't need to worry as much. So what we're saying here today, because sometimes we have to partially meet the resolution, and also we wish to quell the fears. If people are seriously concerned they will be assaulted on the streets or at night, now then they can access this online publication after they pay $600, and then they can access the information. For everybody else, there's no need for them to see this because it's relatively safe in Taiwan. And so therefore, we're protecting the 23 million from further irrational fear, and we are quelling the fears of the few women who are extremely, extremely terrified. That is our plan. Now, just now, the negative team, they talked about collateral damage, how will result in a loss of work. Exactly. This is not a problem under our plan. Why? Because we're not publicizing the information for all to see. Really, we're looking for the amount of people who are seriously, seriously terrified, because think about it for a moment. Are you really that terrified that if you walk out the streets after 6:30, you will be assaulted? Most women aren't. And therefore, the amount of people who actually access this website are very, very few. And therefore, this collateral damage they're talking about won't actually occur. While on the other hand, we have talked about a plan, and we've explained that, ladies and gentlemen. And I'd also like to bring up the fact that, gee Louise. Anyway, so we on the affirmative today, we have proposed 4 harms that the negative team has actually never gone around to attacking. They haven't been able to prove to us that hysteria in Taiwan is not a problem. Therefore, there is a problem that we do need to solve. We have proposed a plan that they've never gone around to attacking. Therefore, this plan, as of now, works. I've just responded to the challenges that they've talked about, and therefore there are no problems as of now. And therefore, we on the affirmative today, we are proposing a plan that will benefit a greater majority of Taiwan. We're trying to protect the 23 million from unnecessary hysteria while quelling the fears of a select few. We care about the whole entire society. The negative, on the other hand, they only care about numbers and small technical things. Bigger is better, dear judges, and here size matters. With that, I stand ready for cross-examination.
Cross negative, cross the image. Second affirmative. 2 minutes.
Then actually, what is your purpose for the whole plan?
What is my purpose for the whole entire plan? Well, partially, what we're trying to do is we've identified this hysteria as a really, really big problem. As we talked about, people are scared that it's actually unsafe when it's not. It will actually hurt Taiwan's reputation if more of these stories go out. We're talking about an $11,280 million loss per year, and therefore we're combating this problem.
You said that only a small amount of people are terrified.
Truly terrified, yes.
So then, what happens if today I'm not terrified and I still pay you $600?
You don't need to.
To a separate website, but then I'm raped. What do I do?
Well then, according,
Shouldn't you solve the problem? Isn't that what
there are therapy centers around Taiwan. There are counseling sessions that we can go to. That is a.
So it's like after I'm injured
Oh,
and after
so-
I'm physically
I have to-
injured,
okay.
I go to a therapy.
So I have 2 responses to that. First, we have therapies around. 2, are you admitting that there is a problem in the status quo that you guys aren't addressing? So therefore, you're actually admitting that there are flaws in the status quo, and therefore the affirmative should win.
Oh.
Well, that's what you're suggesting.
And the next question: why is it irrational fears that should be reduced?
Why should it be reduced? Why? As we've identified in our first, these stories will get out to the international community, and then they're going to be like, oh, Taiwan is extremely unsafe, I don't want to visit it. That's exactly what's happening in India right now. It, as I said before, it procures an $11,280.
connection between that Taiwan's unsafe, so people don't want to visit it.
That is exactly what's happening in India. The damage is done.
But then you
Women
only
especially.
take India as a
China is another one where they treat
Do you
women
have
like
any
trash.
evidence about that?
I have a quote here from Miss Mac Adams, a business consultant. Who has, yes. Thank you very much.
Second negative, constructive speech. 4 minutes.
Good afternoon. We negative strongly contend that the Taiwan government should not make public sex offenders personal information. We would like to refute some of the points mentioned by our opponents. As for the harm, there are harm one, which is something fear in the public. So we negative are considering that who they actually want to protect. Is it the victim or the sex offender? Or it's just an image in Taiwan? And also, we found out that in their evidence card, they use the evidence that is, the evidence they use is in 2008, and which we use the evidence in 2011. And I will remind everyone that we are living in 2014. Okay, and they mentioned that the harm three, that damaging Taiwan's national image. And I would like to tell everyone that not just women will be raped, but also men. So what about men who were sexually abused? Wouldn't it damage Taiwan's national image? And so they didn't prove this. So which this harm, its existence is still doubtful. And also they stated that their plan would not, they will only publicize the terrifying cases. But what if today there's someone who really hates that person, and maybe the victim's family want to revenge, so they pay the $600 and maybe they will kill the sex offender. So there's still collateral damage, and that this part of the collateral damage is the affirmatives they can fix this. So except of the collateral damage to the sex offender itself, it also happens on their family and their children also. And so we have the evidence that showing make public sex offenders' information not only cause negative impacts on sex offenders, but also their family. A national online survey proclaimed that most family members, which is 86% of registered sex offenders, reported that community notification has caused stress in their lives. 77% of them felt a sense of isolation, and 49% of them felt afraid for their own safety due to the public disclosure of sex offender status. Half of the family members had lost friends or a close relationship as a result of community notification. And 66% said that shame and embarrassment often kept them from engaging in community activities. Thus, publicized registered sex offenders' information caused greater harm to their family members. Also, about the sex offenders' children, a study done by Tewksbury and Levinson showed that out of 134 participants who were either the parent or caretaker of a child whose other parent is a registered sex offender, 78% of them indicated that the child's friendship had been impacted in some way. 70% indicate that other children's parents who are not registered sex offenders are reluctant to allow a child go to this registered sex offender's child's home to play. Thus, we strongly contend that the Taiwan government should not publicize the sex offender's personal information. Now I'm ready for the cross-examination.
Second affirmative count.
Okay, let's start.
Second negative, 2 minutes.
Okay, let's start from the very, very top. You talk about how there are victims and there are sexual offenders in Taiwan. You talk about how men are raped in Taiwan. Are you admitting that there is a problem in the status quo, and therefore the end of the should win?
All I want to say is that your plan cannot fix all of the problems in your harm.
Really?
Yes.
We have evidence otherwise, and we haven't actually attacked our harms at all. Never mind. So therefore, you're admitting that there are problems in the status quo.
No,
Thank you very much. Now, you talked about how actually just now you brought up a lot of statistics: 86%, 49%, 78%. What year was that?
2009.
2009, and is that really much better than 2008? Okay.
1 year
Now,
better.
moving on, as an extension to that, actually. Now, what that 2008 evidence? What exactly was that as well?
It's in your evidence
It
card.
was in our evidence card, but did we use that piece of evidence?
Yes, you did it.
Okay, great, but that was one piece out of 15. But never mind that. That was one piece of evidence. That problem still exists in Taiwan today. The government has not solved that. Anyways, you talked about how there are these percentages and such. How big a sample size are we talking about?
I have the evidence.
Earlier on, you talked about 584 people. Now, is that representative of Taiwan? Again, you bring up American evidence.
Can you repeat
Okay,
that?
so the sample size is not a whole, true, simple random sample, is it?
You mean the sample size isn't?
Okay, moving on to the next question. You talked about how people could be killed, how people can access this information. Now, do you have evidence for that?
We do have evidence for that.
That people may be killed. How many people were killed? Okay, so in other words, you don't have evidence for that. Okay, now, again, do you have any evidence saying that hysteria isn't a problem in Taiwan? That the government is doing something about it?
We have the evidence that the government does.
That the government is doing things about rape and such. Okay, so really you're saying that the government is not doing anything about
Not saying
it?
that.
Thank you very much.
Faculty internet.
Good afternoon, everyone. The negative would like to say that we strongly contend the government not to publicize the information of a sex offender. First of all, I would like to summarize their plan for them in my rebuttal speech. Okay, so the public of Taiwan can be easily categorized, according to them, to the people that are scared of being raped and those who are not. For those who are not scared, who are not terrified of being raped, according to them, you will not be checking information online, or you will not be receiving any information by paying $600 into dollars. What this actually means is that you are going to be more likely to be raped, because their plan has actually posed to lower your awareness and the fear that is in you to be raped. So your awareness is lower, but you're not receiving any information of sex offenders. So eventually, you might get raped. For those who are scared, they say that you will check the web, you'll spend $600 to receive information to protect yourself. But regarding this, there's absolutely no evidence showing that after knowing this information, you'll actually be protected. What this means, folks, is that eventually you'll still get raped. So, easily put, everyone in this room, no matter what you do, according to their plan, your chances of being raped is not lowered in any way. And no evidence shows that it is going to work. So guys, what do you do after you are raped? According to them, you're in luck, because there are therapy sessions you can attend. After you are raped, you can go to therapy sessions to help yourself feel better, because your poor tender heart has been terrorized by these sexual assaults. Does this sound like a good plan to you guys? And lastly, I would like to address the collateral damage that the plan poses for the sex offenders. These are the evidence. I don't have to read to you guys all of them. Basically, it causes negative consequences to the sex offender, family, friends, people nearby the neighborhood. Everyone that is connected to these sex offenders, they will be threatened, or in any way they will receive negative consequences.